Tian, nice to see you.
Eron, it's great to see you. How are things going?
Great. Thanks for doing the Innovator Series, our little Innovate cybersecurity startup, sort of how I built this for cybersecurity founders.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Really looking forward to this.
So, you know, anytime somebody starts a cybersecurity company, like we're super curious as why. Like it is a tough space, and there are so many problems to solve. So, like, what attracted you to doing this? Where did you come from, and what did you drop to decide to get into the field?
Great question. So, to give you the full backstory, right, and to fully introduce myself, Kevin, co-founder and CEO of Doppel. For all this, I was actually a software engineer at Uber. So I worked on things like dispatch systems, flying cars. So very
Interesting.
much not the traditional cybersecurity founder background. And my co-founder Rahul, I met him at Uber actually, and he worked on Uber Pool. So Uber Pool, machine
Wow.
learning ETAs, things like that. Yeah. So very, very different world, right? But when we started the company 3 years ago, we didn't actually set out to necessarily start a cybersecurity company. Um, we set out to start an AI company. And so this
Hmm.
was, yeah, so this was 2022, depths of COVID, right? Rahul was actually roommates with the head of research at OpenAI. So, maybe got a sneak preview of where AI was going right
Wow.
before ChatGPT was coming out. And so for us, he called me. He's like, Kevin, this is really an exciting opportunity to, take advantage of a new technology shift. Like a real wave is coming here, and I said, why not? Right? Let's get
Yeah.
started. So that's where Doppel was born.
Very cool. So Doppel, AI born cybersecurity company. Maybe just start with what was the initial concept? What problem were you guys looking to solve?
Absolutely. Well, so the whole premise was with AI, right? It's easier than ever to, socially engineer people,
Yeah.
impersonate folks, things like that. And so, very initially, we actually started off in the crypto space. Funnily enough, so we started off in the crypto space, because we were selling to a lot of our network, and a lot of our network happened to be at companies like OpenSea and Coinbase, etc. So we initially worked on solving for the fake token problem. So when there's fake tokens, fake
Interesting.
NFTs, um, how do you detect that sort of transaction and do it at volume? And so very initially we were building a very different product, but same core technology of like, hey, we got to be able to process hundreds of millions, if not billions, of transactions, right? And got
Yeah.
to be able to do it in real time and also how do we use AI, right, to analyze this? 'Cause clearly, you can't just solve this by throwing bodies at the problem. And so that was actually our very initial product. And over time, naturally, we worked with a lot of great folks security folks who came from digital native companies or the financial industry, things like that. So
Yeah.
word of mouth started spreading about the technology we were building, and we realized, this problem around social engineering and impersonation and
Yeah.
phishing span much more beyond than crypto. So
Wow. So at the same time, like us as security practitioners, we're realizing like, holy smokes, people are going to be impersonating people. People are going to be like, all of a sudden, those Prince emails are going to get really, really darn good. Like
right,
you were already like building a company to solve that because you had this inside, call it inside information to kind of
right.
understand the problem set.
Right. Absolutely. And what's always great about starting a company, right? You always start off with an idea and you've got this thesis and insight, and but once you get out in their field, right, that's really where you get to validate, right, the
Yeah.
product, the go to market messaging, things like that. And so, what's been super interesting and also a lot of fun for us over the past 3 years is, working with some of the, working with security teams for some of the greatest companies in the world, right? We're seeing like, hey, look, if I'm Scattered Spider or if, I'm some other cyber criminal group, right, targeting your organization, this is really how it's getting done today.
Yeah.
It's less so someone just, trying to do some, SQL injection right on your website now, but it's really about how do we protect your organization, your executives, and your customers and third parties, right, from these impersonation threats and social engineering campaigns.
Yeah. What I think is really cool about Doppel is so many cybersecurity companies are focused on sort of from the perimeter in. I'm going to catch something as it comes through the perimeter, or let's just assume everybody's breached. With in some ways, there are, and let me kind of find that and shore it up. But you guys are truly catching stuff before it gets there, which is such a huge value to organizations. There's so many amazing things you can do. Maybe talk about all the different data sets that you guys are looking at and how you're able to catch social engineering before it even hits a company, before a customer or an employee gets tricked into opening the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing is we grab our hands on any piece of data we can get. Whether it's like you said, there's external data sources, right? So we ingest almost every single retail threat intel feed out there, whether it's domain tools, URL scan, who's XML, virus totals, security trails, etc. Of course, do a lot of our own native collections as well. Just crawling the entire internet and pulling in all these IOCs. And then, the cool thing about what we do at Doppel is we're not just pulling in the traditional, IOCs that security people care about, which is like URLs, domains, IP addresses, things like
Sure.
that. But we're pulling in telephone numbers, we're pulling in LinkedIn accounts, we're pulling in advertiser IDs. So that's the key piece in terms of what makes Doppel different is like we're actually constructing a multi-channel threat graph underneath the hood to map
Yeah.
out the entire campaign. And so, to more succinctly answer your question around, so how do we stop it, right? Once we can now map out the entire campaign, wherever it's, you know, already active or about to be active, we shut it down. So we
Yeah.
actually issue takedown requests to um, shut down threat actor infrastructure so that, we're playing less whack-a-mole from the security side, but we're really disrupting these active campaigns.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool about you guys that I know that there's some sort of older organizations that do takedowns that maybe they sort of charge per takedown, or there's sort
Right.
of like it's labor for them, so no fault on their part. But you
Yeah.
guys are doing this at a scale where it's just like all you can eat. We are going to take down this infrastructure, and we're just going to what I say, do the right thing for the customer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes from the idea that in today's world with AI, right? Threat actors can use AI to just spin up numbers, right, and carry thousands of
Right.
conversations in parallel, right? They can use AI to spin up personas and profiles, and of course, still the traditional websites and emails as well, right? So if they can do this with AI and essentially reduce the cost of their attack to cents, right, for each
Right.
sort of instance, we got to make sure that your defense can also scale to that sort of volume. And so we view it as a unit economics game, right? How do we
Yeah.
make it more and more expensive for these threat actors to target, again, your brand, your customers, your employees, your executives? And that's really the mission, right? Is, we're never going to claim that we're just going to 100% solve cybersecurity, right? But how do we just make it a lot more expensive for these threat
Yeah.
actors?
Yeah, you guys are sort of making it painful for those folks to attack whatever customers are using you, so maybe they
Yeah,
move on to the next.
exactly, exactly.
And I imagine you guys are building a solid reputation with the GoDaddies, the Cloudflares of the world, so that when they see your guys takedowns, it's yeah, no, this is Doppel's already sort of done the legwork on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of partnership building that we're doing underneath the hood, right? So, of course, we work closely with the registrars and the web hosts and the ISPs, right? Like you said, the GoDaddies, the Namecheaps, the Cloudflares of the world. But what's really cool about Doppel is we're not only multi-channel in our threat graph, but we're multi-channel in our takedown approach. So,
Yeah,
we'll shut down telephone numbers, right, with Twilio or Google Voice or of the big three providers. We will go after social media accounts, right? Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, right? Where we've been seeing a lot of personas. We've even found ways to shut down activity on private encrypted chats. So, Telegram,
yeah,
for
that's
example.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like Telegram's an interesting one, right? And WhatsApp, and they've been really problematic, especially for executives. And especially for companies that do have global footprints, either in their customer base or in their employee base. And it's taken a lot of work for us to build those relationships with those platforms. And sometimes you're dealing with anonymous folks over there on some of those platforms, but it's critical, right, to really shift in the unit economics on these bad guys.
Yeah, and that's not just to monitor those platforms is not trivial to build. So
It's not. I mean, there's no API, right, where you could just say, "Show me all the impersonation threats on WhatsApp or Telegram." But again, that's why the multi-channel threat graph is key, is because we find that WhatsApp, because it's being linked through a Facebook group, or it's or maybe
right.
a Telegram is being shared uh, via paid advertisement, actually. So that multi-channel threat graph is how we then can crawl across any IOC we get, and that's how we find is a lot of stuff that traditional security companies can't.
So you guys have been successful helping brands secure, brand reputation and fraud, executive protection. Have you guys gotten into sort of state and local government type protection yet as well?
That's a great question. So far we've been working very closely with a lot of different enterprise and smaller accounts, right, on the commercial side. We're actually just starting our government businesses, so state and local in particular. It's been really interesting. Some of these like toll attacks and things like
Yeah.
that are going on, and then on the federal side, right. Again, just starting off, but we actually got to work with the presidential campaigns this past year on both sides of the
Wow.
aisle. Yeah, and as you can imagine, right, those folks, both the Trump and Harris side were getting targeted at,
Yeah.
significant levels, right? So how do you give them the best in class protection across as many channels as possible? So lots of interesting problems to solve on the government side.
That's amazing. I think you need one big government contract to stop Americans from clicking on buying Google Play gift cards.
Yeah,
I will sponsor or sorry, I will vote for the legislation that gives you guys the money to go end that once and for all. So,
absolutely, absolutely.
um, Kevin, I'm super excited about Doppel. I'm super excited to share it with our community. And yeah, thanks for doing this.